Hello everyone, welcome to the 5th episode of the Human Expo. Today we're going to be interviewing Emil Macko, the creator of Five Nights at Candy's and some new upcoming projects. If you're a fan of him, you've probably seen them on his Twitter, and one of them was teased in his latest Candy's game. So yeah, we can just go ahead and get started. If you want to introduce yourself, Emil.
Hello, my name is Emil Macko, and I've created the Five Nights at Candy's series, along with Candy the cat, a pretty famous fan animatronic of the Five Nights at Freddy's series. Was that okay? Or
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So you've been working on some new projects recently. After Five Nights at Candy's 3 came out, you introduced something called Project Opia.
Yes, I did.
And you've been working on that with something else, I believe.
What do you mean, with something else?
I mean, you've also been kind of teasing a duck platformer.
Oh yes, that. So after Five Nights at Candy's 3, I was primarily going to work on Project Opia, because I figured I had just exited the horror franchise, Five Nights at Candy's, and then I figured while I was still in this, what do you call it, like a mental
state, of mind.
Fate of mind or whatever. I figured I would start working on Project Opia, which is also a horror game. But then I got inspiration for this little platform game, which is the duck game. I think I'll finish that first and then properly begin working on Project Opia. Because right now Project Opia is mostly notes and sketches and such. There's no actual game yet.
Okay, so just planning stage for Project Opia.
Yeah.
Okay.
I plan on making the game really big, and the duck game won't be as big, so I will finish that first.
You've kind of been sharing the development of the duck game on Twitter over time. It seems like you're quite open about it, like it doesn't have many secrets, just kind of like a fun project.
Yeah, it is. I think the only secrets about it would be all the levels and the actual gameplay itself, which I will reveal when it's ready. But it's not like, it doesn't have like a deep story with intricate plot points and little secrets and stuff like that. It doesn't really have that. Okay.
What engine are you using for the duck game? Are you sticking with Clickteam?
No, I actually moved from Clickteam to GameMaker because I was developing the adventure or Candy's Adventure game in Five Nights at Candy's 3, which is something I did because I had this, I wanted to make a Mario-like platformer. I noticed some little problems when I developed it, stuff like parenting objects, so I don't have to create thousands of objects at once, and all kinds of little details that just made it very tough to make levels and the entire game. So I switched to GameMaker because I figured it would be easier there, and it has definitely been a lot easier to create everything. I can control exactly what I draw on the screen. I can control where I draw sprites and all that. It's amazing. Yeah.
So some of the mini games from Five Nights at Candy's 3 were like practice for the future projects.
Yeah, you could say that. I practice in a lot of different areas. For example, something I really had problems with in the beginning was one of the mini games with Lollipop. It was the race car minigame. I actually used a lot of vector math there to properly make the car turn and sort of skid on the ground. And figuring out the angles and how to add them together, it was a huge mess in the beginning.
Okay, so similar techniques are easier in GameMaker, you feel?
Yeah, I think, part of it is experience and knowledge, and I think it's about the same in GameMaker. But one thing I absolutely love in GameMaker is the fact that you can actually code with text instead of, some sort of drag and drop blocks and stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's called GML, isn't it?
Yeah, GameMaker language, I think.
Okay, cool. All right, so what we can do now is go through some questions. We've got a load from Twitter. I've had to cut a lot of them down because there were tons, like way more than the others. So I think you've got a lot more sort of topics for people to talk about. So we'll start with one from Mangulation. They ask, why do you like Five Nights at Freddy's?
Why do I like Five Nights at Freddy's? Well, I first saw the game when Markiplier played it, big shocker, and I at first thought that it was like a game from the 90s because it was pre-rendered. It just had this old school classic feel, like Myst or something, the Myst series, It actually reminded me of a lot of nightmares that I'd had when I was little, where I just, would be hiding from monsters and just looking out from my hiding place and seeing them come closer and closer, and it was really terrifying.
So it kind of, at least the first game, demonstrated a new sort of, or it definitely does feel like old-fashioned because it's just point and click. There's no 3D models and all that. Okay, so it kind of reminded you of old experiences of staying still, like claustrophobic kind of experiences.
Yes, exactly. And just staying where you are and then viewing the cameras and all that. That is, it's pretty spooky. Of course, then with FNAF 2 and 3 and 4, I started playing the games because I was interested in how different you could make the games while still keeping the same formula. Especially in FNAF 4, I was really surprised how Scott managed to pull it off without cameras at all, without making it a total free roam 3D game.
Next question is, do you have any tips for Clickteam programming?
I was into programming before I stumbled upon Clickteam, and that was how I managed to learn how to use Clickteam in about a month's time. And since then, I've learned more and more with new features and all that. But I think the only advice I can give is to learn what is called object-oriented programming, which is kind of a way of thinking about how to make these intricate systems and such. And if you can design that, you can pretty much write it down in any language, also in Clickteam, if you know how to actually use Clickteam.
Interesting. Next question is from Shoocharu. How does it feel having a way cooler brother?
Yes. I have a little brother. His name is Lucas. He's pretty cool. He can play the piano, and that's something that I could never really do. And he likes old classical music, which I guess no youngster at his age would ever really like.
He sounds very cool.
Yeah, he is. He's very cool. And he's only around 16. Wow. He's very classical. And then, of course, I have Simon, or Shoocharu, who I think he makes silly little animations on YouTube or something. It's very unprofessional.
Yeah, that doesn't sound as cool.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Okay,
hopefully that answers the question, kind of sets it in stone. Okay, next question is from Axelbrine. They ask, are there any prototypes of characters from Five Nights at Candy's that were never shown off?
No, actually, I don't think so. Well, I mean, Chester the chimpanzee, he was originally supposed to be another fan character, along with Blank and Old Candy. But I never managed to finish him until I started working on Five Nights at Candy's. And then I figured he could be a nice new addition to be revealed in the trailer. And then, of course, I made the rat, which he was supposed to be like a Golden Freddy type secret character. But other than them, I don't think there's any other characters that I have created and scrapped or anything.
Okay. The next question is from King Alex 105X. He asks, will you ever release any of the models?
No. I have never really intended to release any of the models. I don't know, I just don't like the idea. I think if people really want accurate models, then they can go make them. I think there's many artists in the FNAF community that are capable of that.
Yeah, okay. I think that was kind of expected. I know a lot of people higher up in the community, or in most communities, won't be releasing their own sort of content, so that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so this next question is from Pokerfan993. He asks, do you think Candy the Cat kickstarted the modeling side of the Five Nights at Freddy's community?
I wouldn't think that myself, because I feel like that would be making myself a little bit,
egotistical, big-headed.
Yeah, kind of. Candy the Cat wasn't, as far as I know, the first 3D modeled fan character of Five Nights at Freddy's. I think the first one might have been Sparky the dog, even though that was just a tiny bit of modeling that was just a head, used for that fake teaser or fake image. And then there was a crocodile too.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and when I first made Candy the Cat, I don't think he looked that good. And then I sort of worked more on him and everything. And then it was only a year and a half, maybe, or a half a year after the people really started picking up on 3D modeling and learning it to create their own characters. So I don't think Candy the Cat has encouraged the 3D characters in Five Nights at Freddy's or the Five Nights at Freddy's community, but I think it was part of it.
Okay. So just like a contributor in the evolution of it.
Yeah.
So were you modeling before you made Candy the Cat?
I was doing a lot of modeling, not high poly modeling, but I did some models for, like for example, TF2 hats and weapons and all kinds of props for games that I never finished. But Candy the Cat was my first like proper render model that you use for renders because it's high poly. So that was an entirely new experience for me, and I've gradually grown better at it ever since then.
Did you use the same modeling software?
Yes, I've always used Blender. I remember I started like 6 or 7 years ago, and at first it was tough, of course, but I've learned to do it now.
Okay, and you use cycles or internal for rendering the games?
For all the games, I've used internal, and I remember some people asking me whether Five Nights at Candy's 3 was rendered in cycles or internal. I believe it was just because I used a lot of lamps that it looked all dynamic and natural. But I've always used internal. But then, I think a year ago, I purchased a new GPU, which allowed me to use cycles a lot more, as you can see with the Funtime Candy model.
Yeah.
Which is rendered in cycles. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is from ManPersonGiraffe. If you could remake one Candy's game, which would you pick?
I think it would be Five Nights at Candy's 1. When I look back at it, it feels kind of boring. I thought it was very cool at the time with the night vision and all that, but I feel like I could probably make it better than it is. Also visually, I guess.
Would it be because most of the models are outdated now?
Yeah, partially, and then I think it's also the environments. I didn't spend a whole lot of time modeling the restaurant and all the props. I think the most detailed prop is probably the computer in the office, which is actually a prop from an older game that I was something about a museum or something. I only used it because it's a 1987 model of an IBM computer, and it fit perfectly with the timeline in Five Nights at Candy's. So yeah, I used it there.
Okay, and would you ever actually consider remaking Five Nights at Candy's 1?
Well, I think if I had the time, I would love to, and if I had the skill, I would probably try and see if I can make it in Unreal Engine to make it live 3D, maybe a free roam. But as of right now, I have too much on my plate, so that's probably not going to happen anytime soon.
That's fair. Okay, so the next question is from JDAL2700. When working on Candy the Cat, did you ever see him actually being in a game?
I always sort of imagined him being in Five Nights at Freddy's, which is something I did when I designed him. I wanted him to look exactly like the other characters in terms of design. At least he had to look like the FNAF 2 game, the toy animatronics. I always said to myself that I would probably not be able to put him in a game. And at that time, it was probably because I didn't have enough characters to actually make an entire game.
Okay. So so at the time when you were making Candy, you didn't have a fan game in mind as you were designing him and whatnot?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Alright, the next question is from Rafa Gamer. They ask, what are your honest thoughts on a Five Nights at Candy's 4 or Five Nights at Candy's World?
As of right now, Five Nights at Candy's 4 is an unnecessary sequel or prequel to me. I think the Five Nights at Candy's story is wrapped up and finished. So if there had to be a Five Nights at Candy's 4, it would have to be a kind of sister location kind of game.
Like a spin-off?
Yeah. FNAC World, I am actually tempted to make because I've had some ideas lately, and I would like to make the game if I had time. Now that the other Five Nights at Candy's game or Five Nights at Candy's World game has turned into an original game.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's no longer around candies, so I suppose the opportunity is open now. So
yes.
Okay, this next question is from Game Master 4200. He asks, which game was the most fun to make?
I think that would be Five Nights at Candy's 3, because it had a lot of content and a lot of diverse game stuff in it, with all the minigames and especially with the dream and theater minigames, with all the dialogue and all that. It was very fun to do.
You kind of designed a new way of integrating dialogue into the game, didn't you?
Yeah, I think. I mean, it was kind of done in FNAF 4, but I made an entire system here so that I could easily put in new dialogue and all that. The kind of thing you'd see in a Pokemon game or something like that.
Yeah, so it must have been, so the system allowed you to just kind of type in the dialogue and it would automatically lay it out for you?
Yes, exactly. I just had to make sure that the characters or that the amount of characters would be within what could be displayed in the box. Because of the box's size and the character size, I could only display like 36 characters, including spaces. Yeah, so that made writing a little tougher.
Limiting.
Yeah, very limiting.
Okay. Next question is from Smashing Renders. He asks, what are your thoughts on your game having bootleg merchandise in other countries?
I don't know if I have an opinion about it. I think that just means that Five Nights at Candy's has become that big, for it to attract these bootleg merchandise makers. And I think in a way that's kind of awesome. And in another way, I'm a little bit annoyed. But then again, I don't think many people would actually purchase those things because they look like something a 10-year-old could have made.
So I suppose it's flattering in a way.
Yeah, in a way, yes.
Okay. Next question is from Greg Trinidad 2. They ask, do your friends, I'm assuming he means in real life, know about your games?
I don't know. Yeah, my family knows about it, and they often ask me like, "Oh, how's the game going?" and all that. And then I say it's not done yet, and then they just say okay, and then I leave.
Okay, so it's not like a topic that's recurring all the time. You like talk about it with friends.
It kind of was while I was developing the games, especially around the first one when it was released. I kept showing them the trailer and look, it has like 1 million views, and then there would be like mind blown and all that.
So your recent games that aren't related to Five Nights at Freddy's, have they had like a different kind of reaction from people you know in real life?
Yeah, I think because the duck game is more like a Mario type thing, and which is more relatable, or not relatable, but it's more known.
Accessible.
I guess. Yeah, accessible. They're more interested in that, if anything. Also because I've had it on my phone, so I can go show them the game, and then they can play it themselves. So yeah.
I see. So you actually have a demo of the duck game sort of on your phone ready?
Yes, I was planning on making it a phone and PC game and console if I could do that. And I tested on my phone to test the controls and all that.
Okay, cool. Okay, the next question is from NASCAR Freak 123. They ask, was Lollipop only made and included in Candies 3 to introduce us to Project Opia?
No, he wasn't. I was kind of hesitant to actually put him in the game because his design sort of came into existence very late in the game development. I think it was like 4 months before the game released. Or actually no, because he was in the trailer. It was like around before the trailer was finished and released. Because one day I just doodled him on a piece of paper, and then I thought, hey, that looks pretty good. And he's a lollipop, so he fits with the whole candy thing. And then I would make him into this secret character to give the game a little bit of a sort of a new game plus an extra mission in the game after you had completed it.
Okay. So, but he is connected to how you unlock the announcement of Project Opia.
Yeah, I figured that could be a nice way to tell the fans that I'm not gonna stop here with game making. I'm gonna continue. And the next thing is definitely going to be a horror game.
Is it too much to ask if Lollipop is actually involved in Project Opia?
He is not. He is exclusively a Five Nights at Freddy's fan character, so he's not going to appear.
Okay, cool. So next question is from Springtrapattacks. They ask, whatever happened to that FNAF 4-esque minigame you were going to do? Is it something to do with fun with Plushtrap?
Yes, it was it's going to be a minigame kind of like Fun with Plushtrap, but with an entirely different game mechanic style. It was centered around essentially being a staring contest with Monster Rat. There would be intimidating image of him in front of you, and then you had to put the cursor on one of his eyes and then keep it there while he was moving around. And then eventually he would jump scare you a bit to try and throw you off. And then if you lost, he would properly jump scare you with sound and everything.
Why wasn't this added to the game?
I managed to make it work in a way, but I wasn't sure it was actually going to be scary. I wasn't sure if the player was going to be scared when he jolted or jumped a little, and then that would kind of have defeated the game. It would just have been like keep the mouse within this region kind of game, and then would have been boring. And I wouldn't really have anything to reward the player with. Like in Fun with Plushtrap, you're rewarded with skipping 2 hours on the next night, but I didn't want to do that here.
Yeah. Okay. So that's already similar to the tape recorder kind of thing. We speed up the night. So
yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So you already had a go with this, and I'm assuming you already made like a render for it. If you already knew it wasn't going to be scary, did you have anything made of it?
Yes, I had one image of the rat. I didn't have any animations or anything, just that one image that would move around on the screen.
And was it like an environment he was in?
No, it was just a black background, and it was like a close-up of his face, and he was looking directly at you, kind of like in the Five Nights at Candy's 3 icon.
Oh, I see. Okay, was it like a bit like Night Marion's jump scare?
Yeah, in a way. But it was like properly lit with lights and everything, so you could see his face properly.
Right, interesting. And would you be able to share this image with us?
Yes, I think, yeah.
Okay, well in that case, I'll show it while we're answering this question, and that's really fun. That's really interesting, actually. So this was like an entire section of Candy's 3 that was scrapped. Was it replaced with the other minigames, or?
No, it was not replaced per se. It was going to be an addition on top of everything else, and you were going to be able to access it from the extra menu. It wasn't going to be in between the nights, because I already had like a whole bunch in between the nights. We had like the dreamscape and then the theater, and I figured it would have been too much if you had to go through like 10 mini games between nights. So I scrapped it for that also.
Okay, cool, interesting. The next question is from Morpan, probably pronounced Morpan. 123. They ask, can you tell us a little bit about your duck platform game?
I don't think there's that much to say, except it's a platformer and you jump around and you play as this little duck, and he has like a bunch of abilities and weapons and such.
Does the game have a name yet?
It does have a name, and it'll make sense, I think, once you know more about the game. But I'm not ready to share the name just yet. I have to go through some copyright and all that before I share the name.
Okay, interesting. Do you have plans for this game, whether it will be free or paid, or where it will be sold if it is paid?
It will be paid, and I think at first it will be on the Android store, the Google Play store, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I can earn some money there, I could put it on the App Store for iPhones and such, and then I can put it on Steam as well for PCs.
There's like a fee to put applications on the App Store, isn't there?
Yeah, yes, there is, and you have to get like what's it called, like an Apple certificate or something to prove that you're not like some a hacker hacking the iPhones or a scammer. Yeah, and you have to pay that every year too, so it's expensive.
Oh, I see. And the Android is kind of like the entry level. Is there any fee for that?
I don't think so. There might be, but it's like once per app, I think.
Oh, okay, that's better. All right, cool. This question is from Matthew BpBuds. He asks, how long do you think Project Opia will be? So I think, how long it'll take to beat the game, if you have any plans for that.
I would like to say about at least 10 hours. That's what I'd like. Because
So longer than Five Nights at Candy's 3?
Yes. I think Five Nights at Candy's 3 was like 2-3 hours maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, it's not that segmented in a way that Five Nights at Candy's or Five Nights at Freddy's has been. It's a free roam 3D game, and there's going to be kind of a story that you have to sort of willingly go into. It's not going to be told to you in a traditional way. It's kind of, you have to go like look for secrets and discover things.
Okay, so this game isn't going to be made in Clickteam, obviously. Was this a game you're planning on creating through Unreal Engine or Game Maker, or?
Not in Game Maker, no. But yeah, in Unreal Engine 4.
Okay. And have you actually had any experience with Unreal Engine yet?
I have played around with it a little bit, importing assets and coding a little bit in their what's it called, blueprints, I think. And it looks very good. And I honestly can't wait to actually properly work on the game once I'm done with the duck game.
So Project Opia. Oh, okay. So which project will be bigger, do you think, in terms of development?
It will definitely be Project Opia.
Okay, so the ideas that you have for Project Opia, are you more proud of those ideas than the entire Candy series? Is this something? It's like your holy grail kind of thing.
I'd like to say that it is, but yeah, that's a tough one because in a way I want this game to be the scariest horror game that anyone could ever have wanted. Because I feel like I think that's a problem with AAA horror games or just horror games in general these days. They're not scary enough. I mean, sure, they have scary ambient sounds and they have a jump scare and all that, but if you look at an image of it, you don't get scared. If you look at an image of a character in it, you don't get scared of it because it doesn't look scary.
I think a lot of horror games or horror series through the past 10 years or so, they've kind of delved more into action than horror.
Yeah, and sometimes these days, with our graphics today, you can create really outstanding blood and gore and all that. I think there's already 2 horror games that are dealt around with the environment being made of flesh and blood and all that.
Yeah.
And that to me doesn't really scare me. It disgusts me, but it doesn't really scare me.
It's disturbing, I suppose, when you're looking at it really close up, but it's not shocking or anything.
I think a lot of the trouble that the developers have with this is that they think that if you're there in person, then it's scary, and then it must be scary when you play it as a horror game. And that's not always the case, because you can have a baby with a chainsaw coming toward you, and that wouldn't be scary in a game, but in real life, even something as cute as a baby wielding a chainsaw could be pretty scary.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Yeah, that is something I suppose I see a lot more, where some things are too ridiculous to take seriously in a fictional environment. Yeah.
And that's the kind of the problem that I personally had with the nightmare animatronics, because they look like they're supposed to be scary, but when I look at an image of them, they don't scare me that much.
Mm-hmm. They're very chunky and they're brightly colored. Yeah.
But they have those sharp teeth, and if one was in front of you, then you would be scared of it. But on an image or on a video or in a game, it just doesn't cut it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Project Opia can appeal to the Five Nights at Freddy's crowd?
Yes, I'm actually taking a lot of inspiration from the storytelling and such from Five Nights at Freddy's. And that is, of course, in the way that Project Opia won't tell you the story directly. It's something you have to go and find, and you could probably play through the entire game without reading anything or learning anything about the world you're in. But you could still defeat the game, but then, of course, you wouldn't have experienced as much.
Mm-hmm. So the backstory is an optional side thing that people interested in the game can actually look into.
Yeah, because I've heard a lot of people, and it's something I also kind of dislike. They dislike when games have too much story. They feel like it should be made into a movie instead of a game. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's interrupting the game flow and all that. So I feel like making it optional is the best approach.
Okay, I like that. That's a good idea. I've noticed that in the original announcement for Project Opia, there are some characters with art mannequin sort of joints, and I noticed that regarding Chuck E. Cheese animatronics, they don't really have that. They tend to be entirely covered in a suit of fur, but with Five Nights at Freddy's characters, they do have those joints. So would you say that some of the designs are also inspired by Five Nights at Freddy's?
It might look like that, but in all honesty, they are supposed to look like mannequins more than animatronics, and they're not actually animatronics either. The joints are made of metal, so of course they look like animatronics, endoskeletons or something like that, but they're not. So yeah.
Okay, interesting. And the face that we see in Project Opia, sort of, I think it reminds me a bit of the puppet, and I know that you are a fan of the puppet. I mean, you integrated your own version of the puppet into the series, and I suppose that isn't an animatronic, and it's not unique to Five Nights at Freddy's, but they have that sort of emotionless mask kind of concept. Is that something that also carries on through Opia?
It might. Some of the faces you'd see in Opia might look like that. Some other ones might look like exaggerated facial expressions, either sad or happy or angry. But in all honesty, I think that depends on what looks scariest to me. It might be all of them and it might be none of them. And it also depends on the design that you do other than facial expression.
Yeah, like a movement and colors.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. The next question is from Lazy Lambs 000. They ask, when do you think we'll see more of Project Opia?
I think it'll be a while. I might share some sketches and such if I can. And if I make any models, I might try and do some renders with them or put them in Unreal Engine and then do an animation or something, whatever I can. Because I certainly want to keep the hype going, but that sounds a little wrong.
So keep people interested.
Yeah, I think. I don't want the game to die out before it's even been created.
Yeah.
But right now, I just don't have anything to show because I've been working on the duck game instead. Yeah.
Do you think, or do you predict that we'll see anything from the game this year?
I can't say. That depends a lot on the duck game, whether or not that gets finished this year, which I'm hoping it does if nothing else pops up.
And you're very good with release dates. You're very good at keeping.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I've really learned my lesson from Five Nights at Candy's 3, which is why I'm not saying anything right now.
I have noticed that you have avoided release dates or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. Can you say anything new about Project Opia now? Like completely new?
I would have to make something up on the spot. Let me see. I think the beings that you see in Project Opia, they might resemble humans, but in truth they're not really alive in a way, and yet they kind of are alive. You might call them possessed or something. And the world of Project Opia is not in any way like the human world, that our world in a way.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to make the design as obviously non-real as possible.
Okay, interesting. So I suppose I don't want to go too far into this because I'm worried you might, feel pushed to give spoilers or whatever.
Not at all.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, would something like that give you more freedom?
It absolutely would, because I've always wanted to create my own world with my own rules and all that. And I think that's something I'll definitely do for Project Opia.
Okay, perfect. That's really exciting, actually. I know a lot of games, like original games, horror games, they tend to put the player into something they're familiar with, like a house or a hospital.
Exactly.
Or a pizzeria. So yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I personally can't wait to see more of that. And the duck game. I know that they're vastly different styles of games, or maybe they're very similar, and you're hiding something very dark from the duck game. But it's definitely something interesting. Yeah. So okay, we've now passed through all of the normal questions, and there's now gold questions from donors. So we will go straight into that. The first one is from Turntail. She asks, when making Five Nights at Candy's, the first one, I'm assuming, what did you come up with first, the gameplay or the story?
I first came up with the gameplay, the mechanics. The story sort of fell into place automatically because I had to follow sort of the FNAF formula for storytelling and story. So there had to be some children in the animatronics somehow, and then that would make them haunted, and then there would have to be some explanations for why some of the characters look the way they look and are the way they are, like why old Candy's in the back and why Blank looks smashed up and all that.
Mm-hmm. So the designs of like the gameplay, the characters, sort of had to have explanations, and then the story was that.
Yeah, exactly. The characters were already there. And the mechanics were the most important because I wanted it to be a new gameplay experience. But already then, there had been so many Five Nights at Freddy's fan games with innovative mechanics, so it was pretty difficult to do.
Yeah, as the series progressed, I think you you added a lot more originality to the story and the characters. I think a good example of this is the fact that the puppet, the sad puppet, I don't think that actually has. Does he have an official name yet?
In my notes, I've been calling him Memory Puppet or something because he is sort of an altered memory
Of Vinny.
because of Vinny. Yeah, because Mary saw the actual FNAF puppet right before she became a night guard for Candy's Burgers and Fries. And then the puppet reminded her of an older puppet that she knew, which she thought kind of looked like this puppet. So she remembered him as looking like the FNAF puppet, except with blue cheeks and a frown.
Mm-hmm. So the vision of the puppet in the first Candies is a corruption of two characters.
Of course, in Five Nights at Candy's 1, it was never really supposed to be like that.
Yeah, I was just about to ask. That was not planned.
No, not at all.
Okay, cool. All right, that is all of the questions answered. So we can follow you on Twitter. Your Twitter is just Emil Macko.
Yes.
And I think you kind of use Twitter for most updates now, because I know there isn't a Game Jolt page for your upcoming projects or anything like that. So.
I mostly update via Twitter.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you for coming on here and answering these questions.
Yeah, thank you for wanting me.
No problem. There was so much information that people asked for, and you've given, I think, a surprising amount. Really looking forward to seeing that image of Monster Rat. But yeah, okay, thank you for coming on, and I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, okay, bye.